Doug joins us now live. Doug, what did you find out there this morning?
Well, Rick, this punker convention caught police by surprise. The police didn't know what was going on until hundreds of punkers were already in town. Police now predict that about 1,000 punkers will be in Eugene before the weekend.
The real thing that was happening was like this activist 60s sort of thing where people were like, let's teach each other. It was totally inspiring. I mean, and the dealings with the police was the least of it, really. It was like, that was just like, that's how dealings with the police are. What happened other than that was pretty specific to the culture of Eugene and tree sits and everything that had come up to, all the history up to that point. It was like really bioregional thing that went on.
Gathered at the park. They began gathering her here late this morning, and they did that because Ickes did close down, so they turned the park into something of a convention center where they plan to hold some of their workshops. And so, as we have been told, the concerts will not be held in an outdoor venue like that. They will be held on private property outside of the city limits, but we don't know much more than that. Now, as I was talking to individuals today, we attempted to interview some of the punk rockers, and they did not want to be on camera. They did not want us even bringing the cameras too close to them, but they did tell us that most of them are not violent people. Many of the people in this area, though, aren't so sure. Punk rockers poured into town with no place to stay.
This is the window they busted.
Some found shelter by breaking into this boarded-up home on 5th Street.
We took out 12 on Monday. 12 creeps living in here. Yeah. Dogs, 3 dogs and a cat crapping on the floor. And then today, the neighbor here called me and said they've broken in again. And here's 3 of them. I'm not happy.
Gary Olson manages the house where the punks camped.
Excuse me, I have a call. Sally, I am in your dad's place here. We just arrested 3 more people. I'll get back to you.
The young people trashed one room, marking up the walls.
I definitely don't need these kind of people remodeling it for me. This is one of the rooms where they live. It was all cleaned up. I paid to have all this cleaned up.
Olson says he is frustrated. He is afraid to walk through the Whiteaker neighborhood with the punks crowding the sidewalks.
These people need to be shot right between the eyes. That's my attitude. They're not pacifists. They're nothing but animals looking for something to rape, rob, and pillage.
Well, many of the people we talked with in the Whiteaker neighborhood today are not happy with the crowds of punk rockers that have joined their small community. At 6 o'clock, we'll talk with some business owners about their feelings. Lisa?
Jean, last night when Al Peterson broke this story, we were getting multiple calls into the newsroom from Whiteaker residents extremely concerned about what was going on. Any idea what they're going to be doing right now? Have they formed a group together trying to decide how to handle this?
Lisa, I couldn't quite hear your entire question. If you were talking about the neighbors themselves, my understanding is this evening there is a neighborhood meeting at 7 o'clock at the Whiteaker Community Center where they will talk about the issue. And if you were talking about police and what they are doing, they do have plans, and we'll be getting to that in just a bit.
We were talking about residents. Thanks very much, Jean.
Well, Eugene police are planning strategy on how to deal with possible violence or other civil unrest. Joining us now live from downtown is Public Information Officer Brian Terrett. Brian, how are you guys preparing to deal with any problems tonight?
Well, the first thing that we've done is we have gathered our command staff and we reviewed our staffing plan. We looked at what the threat was going to be, and I think at this point what we do will greatly depend on what we see from this area. I think if it's quiet, as it was last night, we had some sporadic problems. We made some minor arrests, but we didn't really have any major problems. But if something major were to occur, we'd be ready to respond immediately.
Brian, have you talked with Springfield Police, the Sheriff's Department, anyone else that also is going to back you guys up? Do you need that sort of help?
Well, I think that we'd only need that kind of a help if we had a major incident. We have a really great working relationship with the other departments, and if we were to need that kind of assistance, we could get that assistance fairly rapidly, including from the state as well.
All right. Thanks, Brian Terrett from the Eugene Public Information Department. Well, earlier today, Eyewitness News reporter Doug Barber went on patrol with the Eugene police officer. Doug joins us now live. Doug, what did you find out there this morning?
Well, Rick, this punker convention caught police by surprise. The police didn't know what was going on until hundreds of punkers were already in town. Police now predict that about 1,000 punkers will be in Eugene before the weekend. But the police say they've had no contact with any leaders or organizers of the event.
And they chose to deliberately keep it secret. I mean, they did. This thing was a secret. And by doing that, they made it rough on the neighborhood, they made it rough on the city, and they certainly made it rough on public safety.
As Officer Dick Grimes showed us around the Whiteaker neighborhood, he said police are scrambling to gear up for the gathering, but they don't really know what to expect.
You talk to them and they want to have a very nice, peaceful thing and raise awareness of the populace, of social ills and all that, but that's not their reputation. Their reputation is they go into a town, when they leave, they trash it.
Grimes says the Whiteaker neighborhood is scared by the punkers, but he says so far that fear is unfounded.
Like I said, the ones been coming into our station, and I've had contact with probably 100 of them in the last week, have been unfailingly polite. I have not heard one harsh word from any of them.
But in the next breath, Officer Grimes said Eugene police are preparing for trouble.
I expect that it's going to get progressively worse as the week goes on.
Police admit they really don't know much about these groups, but police say they believe the punkers are more into trashing property than they are people. The Eugene police are already here at Washington Jefferson Park tonight, at least 6 officers that I can see from here right now. Earlier, while we were on the air, there was one young boy who looked like he was running from a crowd of punkers. They chased him. It looked like they caught him. I couldn't tell whether they beat him on the far side, but police are here and they are responding right now.
Doug, what other precautions are police taking to avoid trouble tonight with the punkers?
Well, Lisa, there's a couple of things, not so much tonight, but throughout the week. There was Eugene Parks and Rec had a games program for elementary school children scheduled to be here in the park this week. They asked, police asked Eugene Parks to cancel that program, and it has been indefinitely postponed. Also, this weekend, there is a huge gay pride event scheduled for Maury Jacobs Park. Police were concerned about a conflict there. That gay pride event has now been rescheduled to take place over at Amazon Park. So police are trying to take precautions to try to avoid some conflicts.
Doug, there are rumors of an illegal camp by the punkers this Saturday night over near the Valley River footbridge. What are police going to do about that?
Well, I've heard different things. One officer told me that if that happens, they will deal with it. But another officer said that realistically, what are 30 officers going to do if there are 500 punkers camped out in a park in the middle of the night? If that happens, they'll try to deal with it, but it would be a difficult situation if you have 500 or more punkers all camped there Saturday night.
Yeah, as opposed to 30 police officers.
Right.
Thanks, Doug.
So I think we're just going to have to wait and see what happens with that.
All right. Thanks for your report, Doug.
News, the evening edition.
Down! Down! Put this shit down!
Eugene police are gearing up for violence as hundreds of punk rockers gather downtown. Some are getting aggressive with reporters. Good evening. Eugene police officers tonight are preparing for violence and civil disobedience.
At this hour, officers are planning how to deal with a punk rocker gathering that's growing by the minute. Hundreds of people from all over the country are in Eugene this week. They're taking part in a gathering called Exist and Resist. Many of the punk rockers preach anti-establishment tactics. Others are known for promoting violence and destruction. But some punk rockers say the Eugene gathering is aimed at making a better world for all of us.
I came here because I'm really concerned that a lot of stuff in this country is falling apart. I came partly to see friends of mine.
Police say they will be prepared to handle any unrest.
Most of the punk rock activity is happening in the Whiteaker neighborhood. That's because a place called Icky's Tea House was supposed to be the main location for concerts and workshops. However, the cooperative temporarily closed down last night because of the violent nature of some of those punks. Gene Powell joins us live from the Washington Jefferson Park, where many of the punks have gathered. Gene, you spent most of the day in the neighborhood. How do people there feel about this?
Well, the individuals I talked with are a little bit nervous. The employees and residents in the neighborhood say they are keeping their eyes open.
Business owners along Blair Avenue noticed a change earlier this week. Every day, more punk rockers arrived.
The only problem I've had to tell people to get off the steps and the side of the building and maybe in the back here where they kind of party back here. And the majority of the kids are really, they've been nice.
But not everyone is nice. When dance studio owners asked some to move along, they responded by cracking a window. Damage was done.
Actually, I feel more bad and the energy could be more positive,
Police responded several times to the Red Apple grocery store, chasing down shoplifting calls.
We've seen several things going on right out this window.
But a computer store located across the street from Icky's Tea House, a gathering spot for the punks, hasn't had much trouble beyond people urinating on their office window.
So all I could see was this guy from about the waist up. And he walked up, and I'm like, get out of here, Holy cow. That's something that doesn't happen every day.
The crowds of punks have others frightened.
She was going to be here tomorrow by herself, so we decided for her to not work tomorrow because if there's drugs or alcohol or anything like that involved, you just don't know how they're going to react, what's going to happen. So it's kind of it's a scary thing, it's a sad thing. They all look hopeless and pathetic.
This gathering is supposed to last through early next week. You see some of the individuals in the park behind me. We've been told that all of the concerts at Icky's Tea House and the park in Eugene have been canceled. There are 2 concerts planned Friday and Saturday night at the Wow Hall, and as of right now, those concerts are still scheduled to go on. Rick?
Gene, so what can people who live in the neighborhood or just other folks who live in Eugene do to counter this, I guess? Just how do we get involved?
Well, there is a community meeting for the neighborhood, the Whiteaker neighborhood, tonight, 7 o'clock at the Whiteaker Community Center over by Whiteaker School, where this issue will obviously be discussed, and there will be police officers at that meeting to talk about it as well.
Okay. Thanks, Gene Powell. Well, tonight, police officers in Eugene are talking about how they're going to deal with any violence. Joining us live is Public Information Officer Brian Terrett. Brian, are you guys putting more officers on the street tonight?
Definitely. In fact, what we've done is we've held over people from our first shift to cover, and we're also planning on holding over our second shift to cover later into the evening. That was what we had to do last night to make sure that we had enough officers to handle the large crowd down by Icky's Tea House.
Brian, what is it that makes you think that these folks may be dangerous?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
What is it that makes the police department think that there may be trouble, that these people may be dangerous?
Well, what we're trying to do is we're trying to judge them on from an individual basis. We have to judge each situation individually. If there are problems with an individual group, then we have officers who are there, they're responding appropriately. I don't necessarily know if it would be appropriate to say the entire group is dangerous. In fact, we found that there are a number of people who are trying to work with us to make sure that they are policing themselves as opposed to having to have police intervention. I think the important thing for residents to remember is that we do have a plan in place, and if something should get out of hand, we do have the ability to respond quickly.
Now, are you issuing any kind of warnings or citations to these folks?
We've made a number of arrests for minor infractions last night. We've had officers who are out in the field today, but for the most part, we found these people to be very cooperative in terms of not engaging in criminal activity. But like I said, we have made minor arrests. Those people were processed and released.
Brian, have you guys talked to any of the other folks involved with the punk rock group to find out how many more are expected to be in Eugene by the end of the week?
From our research, we're estimating that there might be up to 500 by the end of the week. Whether we get the full 500, whether it's more or less, we don't know. Unfortunately, it's not like a conference where you have people who are pre-registered and you can count those numbers. This is a conference that was called via the internet and within networks within these groups, so it's really impossible for us to tell how many people are going to be here.
All right, Brian Terrett, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Earlier today, Eyewitness News reporter Doug Barber got a closer look when he went on patrol with an officer. Doug, what did you find out?
Well, Lisa, this punker convention caught the police by surprise. The police didn't really know what was happening until hundreds of the punkers were already here. Police now predict that about 1,000 punkers will be in Eugene before the weekend. But the police say they've had no contact with any leaders or organizers of the event.
And they chose to deliberately keep it secret. I mean, they did. This thing was a secret. And by doing that, they made it rough on the neighborhood, they made it rough on the city, and they certainly made it rough on public safety.
As Officer Dick Grimes showed us around the Whiteaker neighborhood, he said police are scrambling to gear up for the gathering, but they don't really know what to expect.
You talk to them and they want to have a very nice, peaceful thing and raise awareness of the populace, of social ills and all that, but that's not their reputation. Their reputation is they go into a town, when they leave, they trash it.
Grimes says the Whiteaker neighborhood is scared by the punkers, but he says so far that fear is unfounded.
Like I said, the ones been coming into our station, and I've had contact with probably 100 of them in the last week, have been unfailingly polite. I have not heard one harsh word from any of them.
But in the next breath, Officer Grimes said Eugene police are preparing for trouble.
I expect that it's going to get progressively worse as the week goes on.
Police admit they really don't know much about these groups, but police say they believe the punkers are more into trashing property than they are people.
Doug, are police taking any precautions to try to avoid trouble with the punkers?
They are, Lisa. They asked the Parks Department to cancel a kids' games program that was scheduled for the Washington Jefferson Street Park this week. The Parks Department has postponed that indefinitely at this point.
Well, the punk rockers are causing some scheduling problems for gays and lesbians in Eugene. The Gay Pride organization says that that's not really a big deal. Each year, the Pride celebration is held at Maury Jacobs Park. But as Lisa mentioned earlier, there are rumors that the punk rockers may be holding an unscheduled overnight campout at the same site on Saturday evening. The Gay Pride celebration is planned for Sunday, so the organizers say they are working with these people, and they have moved the Gay Pride celebration to the Amazon Community Center on Hilliard at the same times, in just a different place. Well, the state's key witness says Mary Louise Thompson knew exactly when Aaron Itura was going to be killed, and she wanted it to happen. Today, jurors heard from Eugene at 11.
Excitement of Pro Rodeo. It's coming up fast. Dodge Truck Series Rodeo and Roberts Dodge presents the 1996 Eugene Pro Rodeo, July 3rd through the...
Good evening. One person is dead tonight after a fatal accident on Eugene's Ferry Street Bridge.
At about 9:45 this evening, police say a man dressed like a punk rocker tried to run across the bridge. He was hit by a car traveling in the northbound lanes and died at the scene. The driver of the car was taken to Sacred Heart Hospital with chest pains. Investigators are on the scene and have little additional information at this point. Officers tell us the northbound lane of the Ferry Street Bridge will probably be closed for the next 2 hours as the investigation continues.
Police are calling in extra staff, and the Whiteaker neighborhood is...
Tonight, Eugene police have an additional 18 people working the streets. The whole graveyard shift was called in early to keep an eye on the punkers, most of whom are hanging out under the Jefferson Street Bridge in downtown Eugene. Counselors at Lane County's Juvenile Detention Center are concerned. The place is already full, and so far this week, 6 punkers have been arrested and placed at Skipworth. Counselors say if it gets any worse, youth services may be in trouble. Police say the rain that poured on Eugene earlier helped dampen the spirit of the crowd tonight.
But the rain is not expected to be around this week. Earlier today, we sent reporter Jean Powell down to the Washington Jefferson Street area where the punkers gathered. They wouldn't let her get too close and wouldn't talk on camera. Some claimed not to be violent, but many in the Whiteaker neighborhood aren't buying that.
The punk festival caught the Whiteaker neighborhood by surprise. If hundreds of people gathered in your backyard, no matter what they look like, questions of safety might come up.
Police and Whiteaker neighborhood leaders tried to answer those questions during a community meeting tonight. Eyewitness News reporter Deanna Connell joins us in the newsroom with the details. Deanna, what was the feeling like at the meeting? Are the people worried?
No, not really. There was no overwhelming feeling of fear. People just wanted to sort out rumor from fact. But when you're dealing with a massive festival whose organizers won't come forward, it's hard to get hard answers. A good-sized group gathered for the Whiteaker Community Council's monthly meeting. On the agenda, as of today, how to handle the punker invasion and protect the neighborhood from a possible riot situation.
And I think it's, quite frankly, time to settle down and try to chill out and relax and communicate with one another. And so
Officer Becky Hansen came to answer questions, but many came to dispel rumors about the Resist and Exist Punk Festival.
The focus of this gathering is unifying the punk and anarchist community for positive change through music, cooperation, and activism. This is not a drunken chaos fest.
A Whiteaker resident who witnessed a raid by a group of punkers at her corner store isn't convinced.
It's scary, and I guess, you know, not in my neighborhood, you know, and I mean, hopefully not anywhere in the world, but it was just, you know, they ran out with every 12-pack of beer they could get out of the case.
Police say they've received 3 reports of assault among the punkers themselves. Disorderly conduct and trespassing also have increased in the neighborhood since the punkers came to town. One woman scolded the media. She says reports have scared viewers.
I know they scared a lot of people in my age group, and that's unnecessary. That's irresponsible.
Music is a big part of this festival, and Wow Hall's manager says Friday and Saturday's concerts will not be canceled.
We've done punk shows before. I didn't see anything out of the ordinary. We've handled them in the past. We've had security. We haven't really had many problems.
But the Wow Hall admits it hasn't dealt with punk gatherings of this magnitude. I'm told that some flyers got out advertising this festival as a Chaos Days festival. Now that's when everybody gets really drunk and they go off on kind of destructive rages. But some people that have been in contact with the so-called organizers say that this is not a chaos festival, and they're trying to turn those people that will do these kind of things away.
Deanna, did they come up with any kind of resolution at the meeting tonight? Actually,
yes, they did. The Whiteaker Community Council is going to meet tomorrow with Mayor Bascom and City Councilor Sean Bowles, and they're going to try to come up with some variation to the no camping ordinance in Eugene. Many of these people many of these punkers do not have a place to stay, do not have toilets to go to the bathroom, anywhere to camp, so they're going to try to maybe accommodate them somehow. So they're looking for a piece of public land where they can possibly stay and stay peacefully, hopefully.
Thanks, Deanna.
You're welcome.
This is Eyewitness News, the early edition.
Punk rockers are circulating a flyer giving tips on how to get free food and where to shoplift in Eugene. Good evening, I'm Lisa Verge.
And I'm Joe English. Rick Dancer has the night off. Eugene police now have copies of that flyer. It gives a rough schedule of the Resist and Exist gathering, but it also outlines a number of almost conflicting bits of information. For example, the author asks participants to respect each other and the community, but also says shoplifting is a very noble occupation if done ethically, and suggests stealing from Weremarts, Safeways, Albertsons, 7-Elevens, and the nearby shopping malls. It also says if you want to destroy property, head downtown or over to campus where those that deserve it most are. Eugene Police Lieutenant Becky Hansen told a community meeting last night
this thing is being touted as a peaceful demonstration to socialize and celebrate the cause. Why is it that flyers are being distributed telling people who assembled at Ickey's to go into the mall, go into the West University neighborhood, go to Valley River Center and shoplift from those stores?
No one is taking responsibility for the flyer, and the cooperative members of Ickey's Tea House, a gathering place for the punkers, deny any knowledge of it.
Ickey's Tea House is an interesting part of this whole story. Gene Powell talked to the people at the tea house today. Gene, what is Ickey's and what do they have to do with this gathering?
Lisa, Ickey's opened about 3 years ago as a gathering place for alternative lifestyles and music. When organizers put the punk rocker gathering together, they asked Ickey's to host the workshops and some of the concerts. Ickey's agreed, but backed out of much of their involvement earlier this week when some punkers got violent.
Nobody really knows what's going to happen because there's no way of controlling an entire group of people. We had no idea that it was going to be to this proportion, and we had no idea the ramifications that were going to come upon this neighborhood.
In an effort to mitigate some of the problems of such a large turnout, Ickey's organized cleanup teams to pick up litter and keep an eye on the Blair neighborhood.
Volunteers at Ickey's for the past week have been riding around on bikes and walking around on foot seeing things that were going on, and if it wasn't right, trying to make it right, trying to make people understand that this is a all right community.
Ickes was closed yesterday because of the sporadic violent behavior by some of the punkers. It reopened for business today, but co-op members would not say if any of the punk events would take place at the Tea House. Lisa?
Jean, have any of the workshops or concerts taken place?
Punkers I talked with today said the workshops are taking place in the park, and that one concert was, which was supposed to happen last night, did, but no one would say where, except that it was under a bridge someplace. The two concerts scheduled for the Wow Hall tomorrow and Saturday night are still on.
And I'm sure police will be keeping an eye on the situation.
That's right.
All right. Thanks, Jean.
Eugene police report the punk rockers were fairly quiet overnight, and the few assaults reported were punkers hurting other punkers.
We are ready at a moment's notice to respond to any kind of a major incident. The good news is we have not had that major incident yet, and we're hoping both by our visible presence in and around this group that we won't have to use any kind of contingency plan.
While crimes against people have been low, petty property thefts, trespassings, and shoplifting are up.
All 7 or 8 people came to my store, then go to and the beer section, grab the 7-8 half-pack beer, then grab it, then walk out.
PAC says it was more like looting than shoplifting. Police are investigating the case. Crime is not the only thing citizens of Eugene are concerned about. Some people are worried about public health. Our Randy Neves is live at City Hall. Randy, what did the city leaders have to say about this?
Well, Joe, today was very promising for all parties involved. The Whiteaker neighborhood leaders, city leaders, punks, and police. They all sat at the same table and discussed some of the legalities that stem from having 200 somewhat unexpected visitors. Now, we weren't allowed inside the closed-door meeting, but we heard all parties were amiable and polite. Representative Cynthia Wooten was there. She says the group is trying to strike a balance between enforcing the city's camping law and maintaining public safety.
As an emergency basis, there may be an opportunity to have them in a camping situation that doesn't expose them to danger and certainly protects the community.
Local leaders are negotiating with the U of O to use Autzen Stadium as a possible campsite. The reluctant leader of the punks says he sees no reason why his colleagues would reject the offer.
If it's a situation that benefits us all, I don't think we'll have any problems whatsoever. I think everyone's pretty much in agreement on what we need to have happen here, and that is for this week to finish off without any direct confrontation.
Eugene Mayor Ruth Bascom has the power to grant punks a temporary reprieve from camping restrictions. She says it's a hard decision that she's not quite ready to make. And again, the U of O is currently, actually at this minute, I've heard, negotiating with city leaders and other leaders from the police department and the Whiteaker neighborhood, trying to figure out some sort of solution for this camping dilemma. Back to you, Joe.
Thanks very much, Randy.
The Punk Festival in Eugene is on, and it's in full gear tonight. But the big issue everyone's concerned about is where will all the punks sleep tonight?
An emergency committee is trying to find a legal campsite for hundreds of punks who have been camping illegally on lawns, in parks, and under bridges. Many of the punks camped last night on the edge of Eugene beneath the I-5 bridge near Glenwood. Others crashed out on lawns, prompting a lot of complaints to police. But city leaders, neighborhood activists, and punk organizers are close to finding a better place.
We're working with a location that people can go to after the concerts and events.
I'd rather define it in terms of the problems. We're looking for answers to sanitation problems, to security problems, and to place problems. And we don't have those yet.
If it's a situation that benefits us all, I don't think we'll have any problems whatsoever. I think everyone's pretty much in agreement on what we need to have happen here, and that is for this week to finish off without any direct confrontation.
We understand the committee is close to securing a campground on private property, possibly Autzen Stadium. That was where the car camp for the homeless has been located in the past. Well, some Whiteaker residents have feared that the punks may wreak havoc on their neighborhood. Heather Sullivan reports that some area companies have been looted, while other business people say everyone's overreacting.
Eugene police say they had no serious problems with punks Wednesday night, and other Whiteaker area business operators say punks are patroning their services without a hitch. Ray's Towing says punks have passed by without so much as a peep.
Actually, it's been pretty quiet. We haven't had any
any problems with them. They come through here, by here and our stuff. We just haven't had any problems with them.
Many business people believe the punks are misperceived as troublemakers because of the way they dress.
I think it's just more their appearance than it is anything else.
But others don't care what they look like.
I don't know why. I hope they leave this town real soon for everybody.
In Northwest Eugene, Heather Sullivan, Northwest News.
Punk rockers can't camp in the parks. Crime is up, but the concerts are on. What's going to happen now? Watch Eyewitness News next. From the state police and Springfield police, if the punk rockers get out of hand this weekend, up to 500 punkers are expected in town for concerts and workshops. Gene Powell joins us from the newsroom with the latest. Gene, what are the police saying tonight?
Police are most concerned, Lisa, with the next 48 hours. 2 major concerts were scheduled for the Wow Hall in downtown Eugene. They were just canceled moments ago. Organizers have moved them to the Knickerbocker Bridge near Glenwood. Organizers say they had no problems with the open-air concerts that they've already had in that area the last few nights, and they were concerned about security issues and how many police might be around at the Wow Hall. Now, police report criminal activity is up dramatically since the punks began arriving. In the last 36 hours, there have been 20 broken car windows, 45 trespassing complaints, 16 harassment and disorderly conduct calls, 5 burglaries, a few assaults, and 2 unconfirmed rapes. Normally, the city averages 3 to 4 broken windows or trespassing complaints a night. In response, police have beefed up patrols with as many as 45 officers on a night shift.
In the past, at least in the 16 years that I've been here, I don't recall us being in a position to have to increase staffing to the level that we have.
Officers are also patrolling the bike paths from Valley River Center to Interstate 5, where many of the punkers are roaming in search of a place to camp. 9 concerts have also been staged near the Knickerbocker Bridge, along Glenwood and along the river. And again, concerts are scheduled for tonight and tomorrow night. Those were the concerts that were supposed to be held at the Wow Hall in downtown. The city today also denied a request to allow legal camping within the city limits. Punkers we talked with said it didn't matter to them. They were used to scrounging for a place to sleep. However, Whiteaker neighborhood organizers fear the camping ban may antagonize the group. Lisa?
Gene, did police say if the increased criminal activity is happening in particular parts of the city?
They did, Lisa. Mostly the Whiteaker, West University, Franklin Boulevard, and Southwest Eugene areas. Now, one note, police are not telling people to be afraid or to stay inside all weekend. They're simply wanting residents to know what is going on so they can make good decisions about where to go and what to do this weekend. Also, some of these festivals in other cities have ended in some major destruction on the part of some of the punks, and the city police want to make sure that does not happen here.
Gene, any indication when these punks are going to clear out of town?
Well, the word is Sunday. The last of the concerts are scheduled for tomorrow night, and police believe they'll begin moving out on Sunday, but the fear is if any destruction happens, it will take place on Sunday as well.
All right, thanks, Jane.
You bet.
The reasons why the punks are here vary. Some say it's for the music, some say it's about camaraderie, some say it's all political. Coming up at 6 o'clock, we'll introduce you to a visiting punk band called Brother Inferior. Its members will explain what punk means to them. Reporter Randy Neves gives us a brief history on punk, see what punk stands for today, and how they plan to survive in the future. I'm Lisa Verch. As many as 500 punks may gather here before the weekend is out. Oregon State Police and Springfield Police are standing by with reinforcements if Eugene needs the help. Officers are patrolling the bike path from Valley River Center to Interstate 5, where hundreds of the punkers wander in search of a place to sleep or to hear the outdoor concerts. The concerts scheduled for the Wow Hall tonight and tomorrow night have been moved to the Knickerbocker Bridge near Interstate 5 Bridge. Eugene Police beefed up patrols with as many as 45 officers on during the night shifts. They say they're going to respond if the law is broken.
Personally, I don't care, and I don't think anyone seated at this table really cares what they look like. It's how they behave. And if they come to this city and they violate the law, then they open themselves up to suffer the consequences.
Crime jumped this week as hundreds of punkers came to town in the last 36 hours. Police report 20 broken car windows, 45 trespassing complaints, 16 harassment and disorderly conduct calls, 5 burglaries, 3 assaults, and 2 unconfirmed rapes.
Now, on an average night, police report 3 to 4 broken windows or trespassing complaints. Police say they do not know if punkers are responsible for the increased crime, but calls increased when they came to town. Also today, city officials refused to lift the ban on camping in the city limits for the weekend gathering. Some community organizers fear that will antagonize the group, but punkers told us they don't care.
And whatever anybody might think of them, punks have made life very interesting this week. But who are the punks and what do they stand for? Our Randy Neves gives us a look at punk culture through the eyes of a punk band.
So what is a punk?
You know, a lot of people have their own definitions.
To the casual eye, it's a look complete with studs, leather, and hair. But to the punks themselves, it's much more. Some say it's about authority.
Cops like to kick your feet out from underneath you and just kind of, you know, basic harassment.
Others say it's about politics.
Political prisoners, racism, and like the threat of the right wing.
You know, I'd just like to play the music. And
the music began in the late 70s in New York bars like CBGB's by bands like the Ramones. The raw, simple sound didn't get much airplay in the United States, but in recession-plagued London, a band called the Sex Pistols took punk to new heights. Today's punk bands, like Tulsa's Brother Inferior, are just as disenchanted as before. They don't think today's booming economy is such a great thing.
if you're looking at human conditions as the economy, then it's not doing better. You know, if you're talking about the rich, then of course it's doing great.
Being a punk in 1996 carries with it the same dilemma it did 15 years ago. How do you live in a capitalist society and resist it at the same time?
You know, you basically have to find levels of tolerance, you know, that, you know, we're granted we do pay for gas, we do end up going to Shell stations, and, you know, hell, we even have corporate jobs back home.
If the main challenge for punks is to both exist and resist, then Brother Inferior thinks it has a responsibility to the new, younger punks.
And you like talk to them and you try and be a positive influence instead of some guy going, let's get drunk.
Yeah, get drunk and not take a bath for, you know, 10
years.
In Eugene, Randy Neves, Eyewitness News.
Some music critics say punk enjoyed a comeback with the success of Seattle bands like Nirvana, but the hardcore punks we spoke to today say that's not real punk. They say a real punk album is put out on a shoestring budget and it doesn't cost more than $3.
Punks as they continue their loosely organized convention this weekend.
A few hundred punks camped under the I-5 bridge in Glenwood last night. Today, the Eugene police has posted the area for no camping. The city has denied a request from some of the punk convention organizers to set aside an area for camping or at least to lift the city's no camping ordinance.
The one time they lifted the camping ban for the Grateful Dead, that seemed to have repercussions we hadn't counted on. We just this last week denied requests to other groups, and it did not seem fair to change those rules for this group.
The police were hoping that a pair of punk rock concerts at the Wow Hall tonight and tomorrow night would draw the punks away from the area and that they would disperse in scattered groups. However, those two concerts have been moved to an unknown location. Meanwhile, nighttime police patrols have been almost doubled.
At least in the 16 years that I've been here, I don't recall us being in a position to have to increase staffing to the level that we have.
Patrols along the riverside bike paths have also been beefed up with help from the Springfield and State Police.
I imagine continue to keep things stepped up at this pace until they choose to leave town or settle down.
The city advises residents to be aware of increased activity and congestion in some areas, but stops short of warning people to stay away from any certain part of town.
We are here to ensure citizens of Eugene and people who are visiting are safe.
In Eugene, Rick Hendricks for Newswatch.
City officials have made more portable restrooms available in certain areas to help improve sanitation problems.
20 additional officers overwhelmingly that way out.
Eugene police prepare for the worst and hope for the best as hundreds of punks converge on the city for a weekend of concerts and camping. Good evening. The main force beckoning all these punkers to town is music. Some concerts planned for earlier in the week were canceled, and tonight's punk show was moved at the last minute from the Wow Hall to the Knickerbocker Bridge near Glenwood. Eyewitness News reporter Deanna Connell has been following the Friday night frenzy and joins us now from the newsroom. Deanna, since punkers are reveling in the rural areas, are police more at ease tonight?
Well, Lisa, you could say that. Police and many Eugene residents are somewhat relieved that the party has been moved outdoors and outside of town. Still, people are flooding the police department with reports of disorderly conduct by the visiting punk rockers. And in response, police are beefing up patrols. This is the night shift, and Sergeant Greg Zahar is supervising special units out tonight. But they say that it is looking like there are less punkers out on the streets, even though an additional 20 officers are on the beat to make sure that the hundreds of unexpected punk guests behave themselves. So far, they say that there have been quite the numbers of calls coming in have really been increased.
Now, Deanna, we understand at first that there were rumors that about 1,000 punkers were going to be attending the conference. What are police saying about those numbers now?
Some of the numbers we've heard were an estimated 500 or so, but they say that because they have been highly visible along the Franklin area, that those numbers have been going down. Also, the rain earlier in the week maybe has chased them out. Here we have a report. I believe we're going to a report now.
It's the night shift. Sergeant Greg Zahar is supervising the special units assigned to punk patrol.
3 Baker 40, 3 Baker 41, and 3 Baker 50 move east to Franklin.
An additional 20 officers are on the beat to make sure that hundreds of unexpected punk guests behave themselves. So far, they haven't been too polite.
We've had a tremendous increase in shoplifting and thefts, criminal mischief of vehicles. Had several assaults amongst their own.
Eugene police are making themselves highly visible along Franklin Boulevard as the punkers migrate east.
I think there's a high potential for something going wrong, and I'm hoping that it won't.
By car and on foot, they're heading to the Knickerbocker Bridge near Glenwood for Friday night fun and an outdoor concert. Zahar gets all kinds of attention, from flying fingers and waves to salutes. All in all, it's a quiet evening so far.
Were you trying to catch somebody stealing beer or something?
No, I'm trying to prevent somebody from stealing beer.
What?
Food Value is one of several businesses that's been raided by punks. Sergeant Zahar hopes his presence will make the difference and keep the peace.
Well, tonight's concert is outdoors and it will last till about 1 a.m. Police say they'll keep a close eye on the Franklin Strip and the businesses in the area of East Eugene. Excuse me, Lisa?
All right, Deanna, now we understand that crime has jumped in the last few days since the punkers have been here. What are police saying about that?
That's right. That's an interesting note. Crime has jumped this week in the last 48 hours. In fact, police report 20 broken windows, 45 trespassing complaints, 16 harassment and disorderly conduct calls, 5 burglaries, 3 assaults, and 2 unconfirmed rapes. On an average night, police report 3 to 4 broken windows or trespassing complaints. Police say they don't know if punkers are responsible for the increased crime, but they do say since they've come to town, the calls have increased.
All right, Deanna, thank you for your report.
You're welcome.